House Speaker Nancy Pelosi had this to say to Americans who are worried about where the aid to Ukraine is going. Let's watch.
The impact that it is having on food for the world. So when you're home thinking, what is this all about? Just think about when I was hungry, you fed me, in the Gospel of Matthew. It also is so pleased that Mr. Meeks, the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, was with us.
Doesn't the aid include weapons?
Yeah, this is so disingenuous. And as many Republicans pointed out, I hate that they're the ones that are owning this argument because Democrats won't say it. On one hand, we have a baby food shortage and we have American parents unable to literally feed their children. On the other hand, Nancy Pelosi, who apparently seems silent on that, but very willing, the government is very willing, a bipartisan group is very willing to come up with $40 billion to send to the other side of the world. And people are putting this together. People are putting together that there always seems to be money for military assistance. There always seems to be money for war. But that there's never the same conversation about how are we going to pay for it never emerges when we're talking about funding weapons. You have Joe Biden voting with his feet and showing his priorities, spending last week down at the Lockheed Martin plant in the South. You have them really openly, flagrantly displaying the revolving door from the defense industry with Lloyd Austin coming in from Raytheon. You can see these defense contractors like salivating at the mouth as they advocate for more and more javelins to be sent to Ukraine. Right. And no one on the Democratic Party is seemingly aware of how this looks to the average American who is still in the middle of an economic crisis.
No, I completely agree. They're saying, we're going to ask you to sacrifice. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thanks for making these sacrifices. They're saying this to the American people. And a lot of the American people are going to say, wait a minute, I didn't agree to make sacrifices.
I didn't sacrifice. You just ripped the bread out of my hands.
Right. You took my baby for me. You raised my gas prices. Yeah. How many celebrities keep saying, oh, I'm happy to pay more in gas prices because it's for a good cause. It's for Ukraine. Well, you can do that, but a lot of people can't.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't. And they didn't sign up for it. They didn't vote for this. They didn't approve this. This decision was not made at the level of democratic accountability. This just happened. In fact, maybe they thought they were voting for the candidate who was going to get us out of these entanglements because now the last 5 have all said they would do that. But Biden really said he would, and then he actually did with Afghanistan, right to get us into another thing.
Yeah, I mean, the timing of it, and I asked a guest on my show this, and maybe I'm being overly cynical, but the unexpected boon of the Afghanistan withdrawal, even though he got a lot of flack from electeds from it, the public was very approving of it, followed so quickly by the escalation in Ukraine. After he was already served as a special emissary to the region, after all the connections with his son in the region, from the most cynical, America is just a war state imperial power kind of perspective, it all just does seem too neat. Mm-hmm. It seems too neat and too perfect, and it makes me increasingly not want to give him even credit for doing the right thing in Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's why don't these wealthy celebrities and Democrats and political figures why can't they just give the money then? Why do working people who can't afford it are being asked to pay for it?
Well, that's the thing, right? No one actually is paying for it because the reality of how the U.S. economy works, they print the money and it goes. So the question is, if this should be proving the case that leftists have been making for a really long time. When you want to spend money on something, you can spend money on it. When they sent Americans checks a year or two ago, it taught a lot of Americans that the government ignoring their problems is a choice. When they establish a moratorium on evictions to help half the country from living in the street as they lost their jobs in the middle of a pandemic, that demonstrated to a lot of people that the government can make choices. When they postponed the student debt and put the moratorium on student debt so that people didn't have to pay $200, $300, $400, $500, $1,000, $2,000 a month as they had lost their jobs again in the middle of the pandemic, that demonstrated to people that the government is making choices every day. People say that poverty is a policy choice. And when they randomly print up $40 billion to send to people on the other side of the world, not even as humanitarian aid, by the way, but in the form of rockets, by the way, which is a feedback loop to the interest groups in America that are building these.
Absolutely, yeah.
It is teaching America exactly what the government does and what the government is for, and that it is not in service of them. It's for all of the Raytheon lobbyists and all the Lockheed Martin lobbyists that not only contributed to the campaigns to get these people elected on both sides of the aisle, but who literally are in Biden's cabinet right now.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. As Nancy Pelosi might have said, that when there's only one footprints in the sand, one track of footprints, that's when the defense contractor carried America.